Hey, what's up? It's Alexis Nickley with the Nickley Group, and let's talk about the pros and cons of having an HOA. So HOAs are one of those things that people either don't mind or they're like, kill it with fire, right? Some people are really against an HOA.
I am not paying for that membership.
So that's why I want to talk a little bit about the good and the bad of each. So the first pro I have on having an HOA is the expectance of appearance. So what an HOA does is it prevents your neighbor from painting their house polka dot, having a toilet in their front yard.
Those HOA ladies don't think
Having crazy trucks in their yard. It keeps up the appearance of the neighborhood. Some HOAs have deed restrictions where you can only paint your house certain colors. So it really helps to keep the neighborhood look uniform because maybe what your neighbor's taste isn't necessarily what your taste is. The second pro I have for having an HOA is typically when you have an HOA, there's included benefits. And what I mean by that is maybe the neighborhood and the HOA covers a community pool, a fitness center, tennis courts, a playground. Typically with an HOA, you're paying for some sort of benefit. It could be grounds maintenance. It could be a number of different things that are included in that you get to enjoy. That leads me to my next pro. So like I said, maintenance of entryways, the sign in your neighborhood. Again, keeping up that appearance, but having that paid for professionals to come in and upkeep the grounds of the neighborhood. And the last pro that I have is that it controls who lives in the neighborhood. And what I mean by that is sometimes your HOA is gonna have lease terms. So maybe you don't wanna live in a neighborhood where it's a bunch of short-term rentals, where it's new people in and out every couple weeks. Maybe you wanna live in a neighborhood where you have neighbors that you get to know. Having an HOA who has control over how long someone can rent the property can help control who your neighbors are. All right, so with the good, there's always a little bit of bad. So let's talk about the cons of having an HOA, okay? The very first con is that sometimes those fees are really high and you may go into the neighborhood and see that they're not keeping up with the grounds. They're not keeping up with the things that you are paying for.
So what exactly am I paying you for then?
So seeing an extremely high HOA and seeing that it doesn't look as good as it should for what you're paying is definitely a con of having an HOA. The next thing is sometimes HOAs can have assessments. So without going too deep into this, a lot of HOAs have a reserve fund. Let's just call it a savings account, okay? Or in case of an emergency account. If you have townhomes and the roofs need to be replaced, they're supposed to take from that HOA account, right, the savings account, to pay for that. Now, if there is no funds in that reserve, then what they're gonna have to do is they're gonna have to impose an assessment on the people that live there in order to pay for it. So not only will you have your HOA, but you'll have an assessment for a period of time in addition to that. So that makes the fees go even higher sometimes. Another con of having an HOA is sometimes you get crazy people who are put in a place of power, and maybe it's your next door neighbors, the president of the HOA, and they can be super overbearing. There's this commercial where these people, their yard is perfect, but they have one little twig out on their yard, and the HOA is coming after them every single day, being super passive aggressive about it.
the HOA has been very involved.
These shrubs aren't board approved. You need to break down your cardboard.
Thank you.
Violation. Violation.
I see you met Cynthia.
The last negative point I have about having an HOA is if you own a company and you have a work truck and your car is wrapped with your company and the name, and you use that for advertising. Most of the time, if there's an HOA, they're not going to allow you to park that car in your driveway. So you've got to find a place to store that car. So, between the pros and cons, I think it really depends on your specific situation. I don't think the good outweighs the bad. I think it just depends on your wants and your needs. If you're an investor and you're purchasing a property to rent it out for short term, having an HOA in place that prevents you from doing so may not be a good thing. But again, on the flip side, if you want to be in a neighborhood where you get to know your neighbors, where it's a really family community in that way, where you really know each other, having that lease restriction in place can be super helpful. So I have tons of other information on this. If you are thinking about buying or selling a home, we would love the opportunity to help you and to give you more information on rules of HOAs and any additional questions that you have. So if you do have any questions, or if you are thinking about buying or selling a home, please reach out to us at the number posted, or you can contact us at thenicklygroup.com. See ya.